Jeffrey stares at her from a distance. He's found his victim. He moves in awkwardly and taps her shoulder from behind. She's startled and immediately shows closed, frightened body language. He's already lost his chance. Jeffrey stutters a few words, but he's already come across as creepy. Adonis. Girls act creepy to Adonis, but he doesn't judge them for that. It's natural to overthink and act weird when you're interacting with someone who's far higher in the social hierarchy than you. And so Adonis gets to enjoy the awkward acts of the pretty girls that most guys dream of. You aren't weird for being creepy around women, because men being creepy around women, especially hot women, is very normal. But we didn't want to be normal anyway. So you're going to learn how to be abnormal like me, speak to girls in a smooth, flirty way without being creepy. My name is Hamza. I help young men through the Jeffrey to Adonis transformation. You know the deal, come on. I can't be asked. Click on the subscribe and the post notification button, you know. Tired of being a YouTuber, bro. Smash the like, at least I've never said that before. Smash the like button. It really helps the channel, guys. It's for the algorithm. So I remember when my target would look at me. There was one particular thing I used to do when I had a crush on a girl, bro. I'd be leaning back in the chair and I'd be like, imagine this was just a normal pen lid. I'd be like, whilst looking at the, I'm just staring at the bitch like this if we're in school. I thought it looked cool. And so now I'm 17 or 18 and I had a crush on this girl and she sat in the library and I go sit down right next to her. I'm like, my heartbeat's like, and I'm like awkwardly, like I had a crush on her. I wanted to speak to her for a while. We kind of like, I spoke to her a couple of times before this. And so I sit down next to her and she's kind of like, when I look back to it now, she's very reserved. She wasn't interested, but younger Hamza's still trying to so he's just making small talk. Eventually she gets up, she starts packing her stuff and she says, I'm gonna go now, bye. I'm gonna go downstairs. And I'm like, oh yeah, like me too, I'm gonna go fill my water bottle. So I literally like walk down with her. So I'm pretty much following this girl down the stairs. We go from the library downstairs and she's like 2 paces in front of me. I'm like speed walking to get up to her. The water fountain's up there, but also is her table where all of her friends sit. So it's like T-minus 10 seconds before she gets to her friends and there's witnesses for what I'm doing here. And so I need to ask her out. This is the opportunity to ask her out right now. And so, what do you think I did? I finally pick up the courage. We've got literally like 2 seconds before she gets to her table and I say, do you want to go see Guardians of the Galaxy with me in the cinema? She just looks at me weird, says like, oh, no, and then sits down next to her table. Everyone's looking at me. Mission failed. We'll get them next time. I've just got my water bottle. I'm like one of those guys like holding my water bottle up here. Quickly fill it up and get the f out of there. And then things changed when I got to university. I was correctly sexual. I did and I would have come across as creepy to a fair amount of girls, but I also came across as flirty and sexual to a fair amount of girls, and that was a win for me. And that is the transition that most guys are gonna have to go through, and it's uncomfortable, and that's why you're probably stuck in the earlier stage where you're either creepy or you just don't really polarize women so that you could even be perceived as creepy. You have to go through the transition period where you actually become a little bit creepy and then you start getting like good with women, your value goes up, you've been self-improving, you've been building the body, and then when you actually start to get some success with girls, at least some people will not find you creepy anymore, and it kind of converts into this transition. And now I literally don't feel creepy at all. I don't think any woman that I interact with thinks of me creepy at all. And in fact, the girl that I'm dating, I sent her this text just saying, rate me out of 10 for creepiness on our first date. And she just said like, not at all, 1 out of 10. It was just a bit weird that she thought that I had my group of friends with me. Like I brought my group of friends to the date, but I just got there early and I ended up just like speaking to people around me, Dale Carnegie speak to like this group of youths, and I was just chilling with them when she came, so she thought like I brought like my whole gang with me to our first date. And so if I give you a few examples of my interactions with women over the last, like, let's say 1 to 2 months, there's a few that come to mind. One is a girl in kickboxing. She was in a couple of my sessions. I wanted to speak to her, but I never kind of got up to her. You've probably had this with girls in your class where you kind of like want to speak to them, but then you go home and then you kind of think like, oh, I should have spoke to her. So probably about a month ago, I'm thinking, okay, today's the day, I'm gonna speak to her. And I see her come in and I have like a quick, like nice conversation with her in our training session. And at the end of the session, I see her like packing up and I just walk straight up to her and I said her name. and said, what did I say? I said like, you really caught my eye today, and so I wanted to speak to you and get your number. And she got really happy. Like I said it in like a nice way, and she got happy and she said like, oh, that's so sweet, but I'm engaged. And she did this, like she stunted on the see that ring, dumbass? I'm engaged, prick. I said something funny. I remember saying like, oh, is this what heartbreak feels like? We're laughing. I said, okay, just take it as a compliment then, and I'll see you next week. And she was like, yeah, I will. There you go. If there's a way to approach a girl, especially in a girl who's in your sort of social situation, I don't think there's even a better way to do it and then just a nice genuine compliment. And as soon as you get rejected, it's almost, you take it like lightheartedly, where I just joked and I emphasized it and I said, oh my god, like, you know, I'm heartbroken, but in a funny way. And so the reason why you're creepy, I'm assuming you're creepy, but the reason why you're creepy is because you care too much. This one girl has taken up too many thoughts in your mind, like too much mental space. And that's what we can say is you just over investing into a girl who probably doesn't even know that you exist. That's creepy. So remember my library girl. This wasn't the first time, like, you know, I wanted to speak to her, bro. She was like constantly in my mind for weeks before this. And so I'm going to give you some pretty depressing but truthful advice. For the beginning stages of dating, you have to not really care much. Let's say you like this girl, you've got to really not care about her that much for the first like beginning stages, up until both of you have had a nice connection together. You've got to have like a nonchalant vibe where you're just kind of like, yeah, like they're cool. That thought comes into your mind when you think about them, and then you pretty much forget about them for the entire day up until you've said that you would meet up together. And so most guys are creepy for two reasons. One is that you have the anxious attachment style, which we can refer to as just caring too much about that girl. And the other one is that you are low value. You have a low SMV, sexual market value. So that means then there's two routes that you can take to be less creepy. So number one is to battle that anxious attachment style. Anxious attachment style is like, it's kind of formed at childhood depending on how your parents treated you. If your parents made you anxious, so if they shouted at you, if they slapped you, if they threatened you, if you kind of felt like the love was on and off and everything, you're probably going to be the anxious attachment style. You're probably going to like care too much, you're going to overthink, you're going to overanalyze the actions of people, you're going to like really, like, your mind gets taken up by your relationships. And so if that feels relatable to you, if you feel like you've got the anxious attachment style, you have to start emulating a secure, healthy love. This comes from things like doing inner child work and healing trauma. And I know that this stuff feels and sounds kind of weird. Trauma, like most people are traumatized, even though it's not widely talked about. And this stuff is very interesting, and with men especially, men don't really pay attention to this. Like, we got f***ed at childhood, and we've kind of just, like, we haven't moved on, but we've like moved on from it. Our body and our mind remember, but we consciously like, act as if it didn't happen. Because if you didn't have a perfect childhood, which most people haven't had, you will act in a way as an adult that kind of reflects the love and attachment that you got as a child. Because when you were a child, your parents acted in a way to make you believe that potentially that love was like on and off through shouting, slapping, and threatening. Welcome to being Asian. And this makes you cling on to any love that you can get. And this is why you quickly get attached. And that means that you care too much. And so I can recommend you two books. I'm quite new on this myself, so I can't truly give you much wisdom. I don't have any wisdom on this myself. I've got a bit of knowledge, but not enough to like, you know, I've got the humility to show that I can't really teach you much just yet. But there's two books that I'm going through. One is Attached by Amir Levine. This is like a very nice book to read, and I highly suggest you get it so you learn about attachment styles. And the other one is How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. And this one's a very, very interesting book. If you've been like beat as a child, I highly suggest you start reading this book. So if you find yourself caring too much and that might come across as creepy, you have to heal the trauma that you may have experienced as a child and then begin to act in a more healthy, secure way. And now let's talk about the second route to stop being creepy, because right now you are low value. Because the higher value you are, the higher your SMV, your sexual market value, pretty much everything you bring to the table in terms of dating, like your looks, money, status, and your game. The higher your SMV, the higher the barrier for creepiness. So for example, if you cross this height, you're creepy. But if you've got hunter eyes, then the height's up here. If you're Tom Cruise, if you're a millionaire, then the barrier's way up here. So you understand how this works. So maybe you're a low value, unattractive piece of shit right now. So your barrier to being creepy is way down here. Like no girls want to speak to you. Maybe you're like a normal guy, it's here. Maybe you're a normal guy who's been working out, so it's here. Maybe you're a guy who's now jacked and it's like way up here. What's interesting is that I'm still the anxious attachment style. That hasn't changed. But since my value, my SMV has changed, I have truly felt this barrier, this height of the line of creepiness move. What actions I might have done, let's say years ago before, you know, I got the confidence, the looks, the body and the business and everything. would have been defined as creepy now no longer is. And so, for example, about a week ago, I was at the girl that I'm in love with. I was at her house with her mum, and obviously she was there too. So I already know a fair amount about her, but I probably knew like more than what would be normal, because I had been onto, like, she got a random blog that she linked in like her Instagram and everything. I've read the blog post and everything. And so we were just kind of casually talking. I was like, yeah, you haven't posted since November, have you? Obviously it like takes them back to think like someone knows that much detail about you. And I knew her middle name because I've like, it was in the blog's URL. Her middle name was there. And so like I knew that too. And so before I even thought of this script, I said this to her. I said, if I wasn't sexy, that would be creepy. But because I am the man I am today, because she loves me, because she thinks of me as like a high value man that she's attracted to, it actually is a good thing. Like I know for a fact it gave her like a sense of security. It showed her my investment into her. Because what we said before, creepiness can almost be defined as like over investing into a person, caring too much about a person. Now that is only creepy when that person doesn't want your investment into them because they don't like you. But the person who likes you, the person who loves you, would love to see your investment into them. And so you can act like this. You can take such an extreme interest into a woman when she values you in the first place, which just comes from SMV. Now, I know that a lot of like random little black pill guys are watching my videos, and I don't understand why they watch, but to my boys, you cannot take like the hopeless path of the black pill and say, okay, your SMV is like fixed at birth or some shit. You can improve it, and the more you improve it, essentially the more that you can just get away with. And I am living proof that you can do this. And in my opinion, the best thing that you can do to improve your SMV is building the 10 out of 10 aesthetic body, which you can go down to the description right now and click on the link and you'll get my workout routine sent to you. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it.